Hey everybody, I'm Travis, and in this video you're going to see me fabricate tubular control arms for a Crown Vic front end that are 1 inch narrower. Enjoy. Okay, so here we are, another Crown Vic front end video, building the control arms today. So the idea of this whole madness is to move the wheels in 1 inch on both sides. The Crown Vics are quite wide to start with, so to fit these trucks and a regular size rim and stuff like that without going to like a Mustang rim or something, you kind of need to move them inward, and that's what we're doing here. So started off with a little jig to off these stock ones, as I'm a big believer, start with the stock one and then work backwards. So we built that jig there and then started building my little pieces. So we built these little ball joint cups, built them for the uppers and the lowers. Ball joint slips right in for fab purposes, and then we're going to press those in later. But we start with this cup and then work towards the mount side, let's say. Once you had the cup figured out, it was time to turn on to the tubes, and the tubes took a little bit of fandangling, a little bit of trial and error. It was a bit of a, little tricky, but then I was able to come up with a system and a repeatable way to duplicate it, which kind of was a nice, obviously, what we were going for. So I ended up doing most of the work by hand. I don't have a lot of fancy tools. I don't have mandrel benders, anything like that. The blue thing on the left there is actually a tubing roller for building, just kind of like, rolling tube, funny enough. It has 2 dies on the bottom, 1 die on the top, and then I just sent the top die down, which you'll see later. But the idea was to heat these things up and get the bends started by hand. I had more success with it that way, where I heated it and then pulled and pulled and pulled and pulled. And just kind of started that bend where I wanted it and kind of the shape I wanted. And then once I was done pulling, which it's not a very short process, let's say. But once I was done pulling, it was time to send it into the bender, clamp down super securely to the vise or to the table. Let's say, don't worry about that. Put the oven mitts on and send this thing through. Burn your toes in the process as well. But as it got sent through, it, like I said, I don't have a lot of fancy tools or anything, so I made it work with. This video should be titled "Making It Work." Actually, I just thought of that because that's what we did here today. We tried to build something pretty, somewhat complex and with non-complex tools. So, yeah, it's called "Making It Work" is what we did today. But anyways, I sent it down with the pipe wrench here, the big old wrench, pulled that out, and then got her into a good spot. So I was able to mark my depth. Once I had it all figured out, I kind of figured a nice happy place for it to be, right where I wanted it. So then I was able to repeat it over and over again, and then we started loosening this thing off and get it going. Whoa, oh, hey, here we go. Hey, watch it. All right. Anyways, gotta have a little fun with it, right? That was a lot of fun, actually, whipping that thing around. I got hit in the face one time. It really hurt, but here we are anyways. So we're still smiling. We still have all our teeth minus 1. But there it is. Okay, so that was how we started, and then these were bungs. I bought these bungs from TMR Customs, great company, Canadian company, great to deal with. But I ended up buying these because it's just easier kind of to buy them than to make them. This video here, or this shot, I just want to say I do all my coping and fitting by hand. Some guys have machines for it, stuff like that. But I do mine by hand. That seems to work for me. I don't know if I totally recommend it, but it's good. Good way to learn and stuff like that. But anyways, just want to throw that in there for the remainder of the video. You'll see it a little further down the line as well. But then here was our tubular arms or tubes in the jig with the cup, and then the adjustable ends. So the adjustable ends were the key to this, where I was able to wind those ends in 1 inch. So I was able to build it off the stock specs and then wind it in 1 inch, and that was just our 1 inch was taken off right there. This part here, I moved on to the lowers. So once the tops were taken care of, didn't have any videos of me welding or anything like that, but who wants to see that crap anymore? Oh, fire, look at that. Oh, give it that fire. Anyways, getting a little excited over here. I'm liking it. Who doesn't love fire, I love some caveman stuff. Like, this stuff's a lot of fun just to do with a torch in your hands and things like that, but, that's enough about me. Anyways, get it to a nice cherry red kind of spot. This one I didn't have to like fill with sand or anything, or mess with a lot. This is a bit of a bigger material, 1.5 inches is 1.25 inches, thicker wall, blah blah blah. So same process though. So this tube fit the dies a lot better, and then repeat the process again. So the previous shot there where I had all the white marks figured out, that's kind of my middle of where I want to put the die, heat it up in that zone kind of thing, and then do it all over again. Once you twist that thing down for like 18 hours, you kind of find your spot. So once I had my depth figured out and I had my heat figured out, we just repeated the process over and over again. This is why people have mandrel benders, because they're not as crazy as me, I guess. There's the copes I was talking about. Like I said, I have angle grinders and files, stuff like that, and I think it works really great. I mean, the fitment isn't absolutely perfect, but sometimes it's not absolutely perfect with the big machines. So either way, moving on. The tube on the left or the tube on the bottom, I started with the 1.25 inches. I realized it was probably too flimsy, too small, so I moved on to the 1.5 inches, and then this is what we got. So this is the giant snake, as I like to call it, for the lowers. So this is the jig for the lowers. This is the tubes we were just building for the lowers. And then here, I didn't have the luxury of bolting the ball joint down based on just kind of I had to cut the ball joint out, blah, 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 blah. There's the fitment I was doing there. So I had to get a little creative with the clamps and stuff like that. But yeah, so there's the fitments where I said, like, you know, it's not perfect, but it's pretty good. I was happy with it. And then these were the bungs that I built for the rear lower bushings, or whatever you want to call them, the lower bushings. Those turned out good. They're nice and long and cool. So they worked out nicely. And then, of course, once all the parts are together, we have our jig, we have our tubes, we have it all. Let's start welding this thing up. I mean, this is kind of the fun part, right? You put a little weld on it. I mean, I didn't weld this one fully because we're going to put a cross member in that we're about to show in a few seconds here. But this is kind of the look of the tube. This was kind of a fun day, right, where you get to see it kind of come to life in a certain sense. This shot here, I wanted to show you guys, this is just the back and forth of coping. So this is our little cross member that we're going to show here, but this is kind of how much goes into it just for back and forth and things like that. But like I said, sometimes it can be faster than the machines if you know what you're doing, but sometimes it is a little pain in the neck. So a little pro tip with these, if you're doing tubes like this, tubular control arms, roll cages, whatever, connecting tubes like this, breather holes are a big deal. Those little holes there allow the gases or the air inside the tubes to expand into the other tubes as you heat up the portion that you're welding. So it doesn't blow out your welds. It's kind of a key thing when you're doing that kind of stuff. So these are the rear bushings that I put together. Those are from TMR as well. Again, highly recommend TMR. I went a little fancier with those, you know, fancier look with that, because I know you can see that from outside the truck. Like every day when you walk by, you can see that mount. So I wanted it to be kind of fancy and kind of cool. Moved on to the shock mounts, got those going, welded those on the vehicle, and then put the new shocks in, and they were actually a little bit longer. They, you know, I had to notch them out. I had to notch the tube out a little bit because I wasn't super happy with that clearance. The original ones were pretty good. I was happy with them, but I don't know if that was a police or civilian difference or Monroe difference, or I don't know. But there's the notches I was talking about. Came out fine. Super happy with it still. Just kind of pain in the neck once you're almost done, and then you have to go back and notch it all. But this was the powder coat pile. So before we could really install all this stuff and do it all, I had to get a powder coated first because we got to put the ball joints in after, and once the ball joints are in, they're not really coming out. So anyways, that's what it looked like. But this was kind of a cool shot. I was proud of this one, where you know, it's just kind of cool to see factory, you know, stock, stamped steel, all that stuff, and then a tubular one that's, you know, cool and race car stuff or whatever, you know, that kind of stuff. But it was just cool to see. So like I said, once it was back from the powder coaters, we had put the ball joints in, use the vise for that, you know, no press, no nothing like that. And then this is where the prior proper planning prevents piss poor performance, where when you start and you build it kind of the way you want it and the way it works, when you go to assemble it, everything works out just fine because you built it that way, and you know, it all kind of works together, right? So it all got assembled, and this is where the magic happens. This is where it all kind of comes together. This is the excitement of the new parts and stuff. Hopefully this stuff doesn't break as I'm flying down the road. Obviously, I'm not anticipating that, and I kind of built it. You know, I built it with that kind of mentality in mind that it's going to work. I kind of actually just copied some other guys how they did it, and then made my little improvements and things like that. But yeah, there it is, folks. I mean, wham bam, thank you, ma'am. That thing is awesome. I mean, I mean, I like you guys, you know, I love you and all that stuff, but I don't really care what you think. That's awesome. I feel like Cal Naughton Jr. You come take this trophy, you know, I'll sock you in the face. But no, anyways, yeah. So I was super happy with it. It was a very labor intensive. It was very tough, but it was something I always wanted to build. And I'm happy that I've checked that box. Again, hopefully it works, and I'm going to road test it all and make sure, you know, if I make a video that says, hey, it all broke, but, you know, that's a whole nother thing. But, I mean, there it is. So, a little sneak peek of the rims as well, and kind of the direction and the look we're going with. Red, black, and white, some combo of that. And there it is, folks. Thanks a lot. See you next time.